they're eliminating human energy and human intelligence by machines. And the reason they do this is they believe that by reducing labor costs, that is the wages that are paid to the workers, that will render their industry more efficient.
Silicon chips do not belong to unions. They do not go on strike. They do not ask for more and more pay. They do not need holidays, nor heated offices, nor tea breaks. They are very reliable and do not make mistakes. They need very little space in which to function. They are very cheap. They use very little energy. And they are here now, waiting to be brought into use.
Does that sound familiar to you? Well, they're not talking about AI. They're talking about what happened 45 years ago. This is a documentary that was released in 1981, and it examined the impact of new technology, specifically the chip and the microcomputer, on business and the industry. Now, this is a time that was referred to as the Third Industrial Revolution. And if you haven't already heard, history repeats itself big time. So in this video, we're going to go back in time to the heights of the 1980 computer boom, and we're going to take a look at how the promises and failures of that time can help us foresee some of the plays of our own.
Those who lag back will become steadily less competitive.
And if we do not invest in word processing and, as I said, these other areas in the way that I described, then we will simply not be competitive.
If we don't move now, and move very, very quickly, both large and small companies alike, I think we run a major risk of losing competitiveness.
We still have time to stay in this race if we run very hard now.
They seem to be presenting it as inevitable.
We've seen big companies tripping over themselves to get in on AI. And there was a point where lots of brands seemingly rebranded overnight to call themselves AI-first companies. Like, a lot of companies that sell software as a service are now pushing their AI features to the forefront. Notion now has assistants, Google Drive is now AI-powered, and Microsoft is pushing their Copilot stuff, though it looks like they're starting to scale back. Laptops and smartphones are being advertised for their AI features, but truly, who cares about that? I personally automatically tuned out when I was looking at a device and the associate started pitching its AI features. Who is this all for? The only people who seem to be salivating over this are the executives who think the more of it they add to their company, the higher their stock price is going to go up. Which is true, there is evidence that that has happened. But just like in times past, the race to get into AI is all driven by the desire for economic gain.
We are now in a period in which production itself is being reorganized to bypass, to squeeze out labor from the productive process, whether it's production on a factory, whether it's in an office, to enable the capitalists to squeeze out or to regiment labor much more.
In the United States today, productivity has become the status of almost a major ideological war. Management raises the flag of increased productivity. The workforce is supposed to salute. Very often the question, however, is not productivity, but one of control. That is, management would like to exert increased control over the workforce in the long run to maximize profit.
The amount of things I can say about this one. If corporate was a religion, productivity would be the highest virtue that you could strive for. Like, in Christianity, kindness and humility are things that you can always do more of, right? You can always work towards being more of that. Well, in corporate, you can always work towards being more productive. There's always more room for development there. I've seen this picture for over a year now as the future that tech companies want to work towards. And they're expecting people to get hype about the fact that their team is going to be reduced to one person, ideally, and that one person is going to be held accountable for the work of multiple agents. If this isn't the epitome of what that speaker was saying about squeezing out as much labor as you can as possible, then I don't know what is. It's literally expecting the output of a team from one person. And the other thing that I've noticed in corporate since the introduction of AI has been the obsession with finding ways to measure productivity. There are literally meetings where managers and tech leads sit and look at dashboards of metrics that show them how long it took their team members to finish their tickets and merge their code. And if the numbers aren't as good as the previous week, they show up in red like it's a stock devaluation, and the tech leads need to explain what happened and why their team was not as productive and why they were not faster. So it's like you're constantly on a performance improvement plan. There's never a ceiling to this. And so the management is essentially watching the people who are actually doing work and trying to find ways to get them to do more. They're trying to look at these metrics and search for bottlenecks and derive ways to speed things up ad infinitum. And these productivity gains, they're not for us. They're not for the people. They're not for the employees. They're solely for the companies to be able to make more profit and have nice numbers to present to their shareholders.
Awesome, you are robots. The problem becomes one of the pace of work is set by the mechanical arms on either side. So work where you formerly had some control over the pace or the method of operation, those decisions are completely removed. And you find yourself literally trapped between mechanical arms programmed by someone else.
So this is a problem that we're absolutely seeing. The pace of output is being set by the AI, and humans can't compete with that. Humans can't keep up with that. We can't write code in minutes. And if we actually want to understand that code and be able to answer granular questions about it, we have to go back down to a human pace and take time to understand it. And if you're not given the time to understand the output of AI, then you're forced to use it more and just run with the decisions that it's making for you. Like, I have literally seen developers that know that they cannot understand the code that their agent generated, and they know that they can't meaningfully review the pull request. So their solution for that is to have another agent, a different type of model, check that work of the first one and review its code. And those are the things that pace expectations set by artificial intelligence force people into. And then further proof that we simply can't keep up with the pace of AI is that I've been seeing headlines recently mentioning AI brain fry. Overseeing multiple AI agents causes an acute sensation of buzzing, a fog that left workers exhausted and struggling to concentrate. The study's author called it AI brain fry, defined as mental fatigue from excessive use or oversight of AI tools beyond one's cognitive capacity. Contrary to promises of having more time to focus on meaningful work, juggling and multitasking can become the definitive features of working with AI. This AI-associated mental strain carries significant costs in the form of increased employee errors and intention to quit.
You might ask, why are there people there in the first place? And that's strictly an economic decision right now because sight and feel for robots haven't been perfected to the point where this is economically feasible right now. So that's the sole worth of a human being in the system.
So, absolutely similar. The intention of these companies is to leverage AI automation as much as is possible, and they are using employees to help get them there. Like for a lot of workers, it's actually asked of them that they can demonstrate their usage of AI. So a lot of people are forced, in order to keep their job for the moment, to create projects that are essentially automating away parts of their own job. That can then lead to them getting laid off in the future. So yeah, essentially for these AI-first companies, yeah, we need you guys right now to be button pushers and AI overseers while we figure out how much further we can take this stuff.
In the past, we've seen slumps, but the danger today is not cyclical unemployment as a result of a slump, but built-in structural unemployment as a result of a radical change of the industry in terms of the technology used.
It's about a third of all clerical and administrative jobs are likely to be automated by the introduction of word processors.
A French government report also predicts that 30% of banking and insurance jobs will go, while in Germany and Britain it's estimated that roughly a third of all office jobs will be cut within the next 10 years.
Just like today, they predicted mass unemployment in the 80s as a result of the introduction of this new technology. But despite these predictions, it didn't actually happen like that in the 80s. In fact, computers did open up a lot of opportunities. But in comparison with where we're at right now, we are seeing a large number of people getting laid off, and companies are citing AI as the reason for those layoffs. Though I do want to say that companies saying that they did layoffs because their AI automation is just so good that it has now made them more efficient with less people is actually something that casts the company in a good light for investors. But the reality of it can be more nuanced. The economy itself is not doing very well. And a lot of these companies are over-investing in AI. So to make up for it, these layoffs can be ways for them to try and boost their profitability. The other thing is that the main people that are predicting we're going to have mass unemployment because of AI are literally the people that are selling the AI product. And it's a sentiment that causes fear, and a lot of companies feel like they need to get in on it if it's really that good. And it's really going to do that for efficiency. So my point is, companies are not just laying off employees because AI, there's more to it, and it's not shareholder friendly. But seeing these headlines from companies saying that, yeah, we're cutting jobs because of AI, along with headlines from AI companies claiming that their product is so good it's going to lead to a bloodbath of white-collar jobs, makes it seem like huge mass unemployment is impending when in reality we do not know how this will play out.
William F. Laughlin, the vice president of IBM,
People will adapt nicely to office systems if their arms are broken, and we're in the twisting stage now.
Now, this is an insane statement from a leader at IBM. And at the time, IBM was the top of this revolution. They were like the OpenAI and Anthropic of today. And here he is essentially saying people will be forced to use our technology. And if you're someone that's working at a company that has heavily invested into AI and is banking on those productivity promises, you know that right now they're at a point of pushing people into a wall and forcing them to adopt AI, whether they like it or not. It's literally becoming a requirement for roles, and it's being baked into the procedure of how things should be done. For software engineers, companies are forcing developers to do all of their coding using an IDE like Windsurf or Cursor that has an AI assistant built in, or literally mandating that all code be done through prompting and prompt-driven development because they believe this will speed things up. And after enforcing the usage of AI, they're immediately moving like it's already true, like the productivity gains are already there. So they're like tightening deadlines, they're trimming teams around the efficiency promises, and the employees have to make up for what the AI can't do with increased stress and higher workloads. So people right now are definitely being twisted and wrung out in order to meet these new efficiency demands that these executives have invested in and are trying to manifest into reality.
Good morning, authorization. May I have your merchant number?
Social isolation is also a complaint because you don't need to be supervised by humans a lot of the time. If you make an error, it's automatically thrown up by the software, and therefore people are complaining also of social isolation, that they're actually separate and apart from the rest of the operations of the business.
I feel like social isolation is something that we don't complain about nearly enough. I feel like it's something that we really have gotten used to, and it's not even something that we notice anymore as being as unnatural as it really is. And I feel like oftentimes technology solutions push us towards needing each other less and less. We see this even with apps, right? Like they're all trying to solve a problem that we have, but really what it comes down to is they're helping us solve that problem without needing anything outside of the device or the app to get us there. If you ask someone for directions, that's almost suspicious now because it's like, wait, don't you have a smartphone like everyone else that can give you that information? And AI furthers this. Like, AI is eroding that authority that we got from other people. Like, I feel like kids don't even need to ask their mom a question anymore. All they need to ask their mom is, "Hey mom, what's for dinner?" And then everything else AI can talk them through. Same thing in the workplace. You don't need to ask your coworkers a question in their domain anymore. You can just use the enterprise AI that the company invested in that scans through your company's documents and finds you an answer. But it takes away from getting knowledge and expertise from other people and being someone that people come to when they need help with something or advice is actually a really big source of meaning for people.
The Luddite factor.
James Watt invented an interesting toy. The system created the Industrial Revolution. Not without opposition. The new machines eliminated old skills. In England, organized bands known as Luddites smashed the hated machines and rioted. To no avail. Their only legacy is their name. Luddites, the resistance to change, overt or otherwise.
So this little ad was meant to shame people who resisted the new technology. And the same thing is absolutely happening today. There's plenty of professional shaming going on. I can't tell you how many times I've heard something along the lines of, if you don't embrace AI, you're going to be left behind, and AI is not going to replace you, but the person using AI will. And generally just things along the lines of, this is the future. This is where we're heading, and if you don't come along, you're going to be obsolete. So at that point, it's kind of your fault if you don't have a job, because you're not proving your value anymore.
It seems to me that the jobs that remain, whether in the white collar or in the manual field, will be de-skilled. There'll be jobs in which the worker, whether by hand or by brain, is controlled by the machine rather than the other way round. That they'll be reduced to almost a machine appendage, simply reacting to the system rather than acting upon it. And it'll give the employers enormous control over them.
De-skilling and reducing workers to appendages of a machine is absolutely what you get when you force workers to transfer their skills over to AI and go through AI for everything. Sure, some people may have a laugh when coders forget how to code, but it's not so funny when it's your doctor who forgets how to treat because they've gotten so used to going through their assistive AI for their decision making. This study on AI de-skilling in the medical field found the following. The result is a progressive disengagement from complex cognitive and procedural tasks, reducing both technical proficiency and the nuanced clinical judgment that underpins effective medical practice. Beyond the loss of practical skills, this transformation also risks diminishing professional confidence and autonomy, reinforcing dependence on AI even in situations where human expertise remains critical. Like, from my perspective, if we achieve this autonomous society that these companies are investing in, then everything will literally be AIs talking to AIs, and the humans are just going to be there to execute the parts of it that it can't do. But it will be making all the decisions. Like, why would we want to outsource everything in our society to AI? And atrophy our own skills?
New technologies that allow you to shed labour could create a situation where the people who own the factories where they're being applied can make an enormous profit with fewer people who are better paid, but the real price is paid by society because the people who are displaced by the new technology become unemployed, they have to be paid for out of taxation, and society then moves towards the social disruption that comes from high technology.
The companies are just going to continue to find ways for them to profit while leaving the rest of society to deal with the consequences.
And so you can imagine the situation, these women who've lost their job, now been retrained, proud owners of a typing certificate, marching boldly to the new insurance company, doubtless to meet the women coming out who've just been replaced by word processors, which have automated the work that they've done.
So in this, he's talking about how women who were let go from their companies were retrained now to have these computer skills that were in demand. And they were essentially ready to work with these new computers at the same time when other women were getting fired. And this is happening now. I mean, if you look at a lot of job applications, they're all mentioning AI skills. So, like, if you've been laid off from a job in the tech sector, now you have to turn around and go back to these interviews and pretend like you've been spending all of your time mastering this technology that the companies have restructured for that led you to be laid off in the first place.
The microprocessor and the ensuing computer revolution hold the promise of shorter working weeks, more leisure time, and an increasingly affluent society.
I think we've all given up on the hope for an increasing affluent society, but I have definitely seen headlines about AI holding the key to a shorter work week. And I think, yes, AI can absolutely shorten the work week. But companies are motivated by profit first and foremost. They are not motivated by employee well-being. Amazon workers are literally forced to pee in bottles because they get punished if they leave their tracked route to find a bathroom. If having you in the office for less time is going to make them less money, they are not going to do it. It depends on who is designing the system. And the people that I see designing the system right now are not designing it to give the average person the best possible life they can. If a company wants the best for their employees, then sure, they would probably do that. But where is said company? Because it's definitely not on the Fortune 500 list.
People, millions and millions of people, may disappear from the rat race. Machines will replace so many jobs, the drudgery of daily life may be the struggle to find things to do.
We have pieced together our model community of the future, a town which has embraced technology wholeheartedly and taken full advantage of all it has to offer. And leisure is something in which everyone in our community will be encouraged to get involved. A leisure complex in every town, containing craft shops, sports facilities, entertainment centers, and hotels.
It sounds almost goofy and ridiculous to hear that this was an idea that some people believed in the past. But truly, like, it could have happened, you know? But again, the people pulling the strings don't actually care about people. They only care about advancing their own interests. Guys, there are data centers that are literally releasing cancer-causing formaldehyde illegally onto the populations living around them. They are influencing the government to have unchecked power. And you think it's their goal to freely make your life better?
All of these nice little suggestions have one big problem. How do you pay for them?
All this stuff about leisure or increased education or whatever is absolutely meaningless given the present way our society is organised. There is no mechanism for distributing the wealth other than through the wage. And like if people are outside that wage structure, then they haven't got anything.
It doesn't just get shared out. We don't, it's all get richer without some definite intervention to try and distribute the wealth. And there's absolutely no sign that there's any thought or intent to do that.
It's all right talking about leisure. They talk about leisure, you know, but leisure to me, unless you've got money to enjoy leisure, it's just forced idleness.
There are people that believe that if AI is able to replace jobs and people are unemployed, then there's going to be a universal basic income in place for people to survive. Again, I'm not hating on this idea. That sounds pretty nice. But, like, if that was actually going to happen, then we're ready for it. There's been hundreds of thousands of workers that have already gotten laid off that need it. So when is it coming exactly? Because there's no conversation about it at all in the government. So again, that's a nice idea, but I don't see us living in a society that values the well-being of its members above all else. In reality, I feel like the only thing you're going to get is an unemployment check, and even that is not going to come from an increase in government investment in that. It's literally going to come out of tax dollars from the other regular people.
The driving force behind the convergence of these technologies is increased control for the major multinationals. And they themselves are fighting about who is going to control these networks as they're set up. The battles are going to become quite literally across the whole of the Western world. Out of that battle will emerge one or at the most two corporations who will between them have control of what will in the future be a major means of handling information. And then we'll be in a position where a primary life source is controlled by one corporation with enormous profits, with very few people, and it is able to call the tune for what future developments are.
Okay, so this to me explains why one company is poaching another company's AI talent with $100 million paychecks and things like that. And why data centers are being churned out like crazy right now by these companies. It's because Meta, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, they're all fighting for the ability to secure their place at the top and become the leader. Because like the trends of the past, there's a period of innovation, but then a very small amount of companies actually dominate the market. You know, like Apple and Android phones. So their race to AGI is really a race against each other too.
If we once allow the complexity of technology to be used as an excuse for not retaining democratic control, then a huge and growing chunk of our future is abstracted from democratic control, and then you move towards a technocratic domination of society, which is one of the real dangers that science, which began as the liberator of man, could end up enslaving man by putting its power at the disposal of those who already own our factories or own our newspapers, our television stations, and in this way impose a tyranny in the guise of liberation.
So he's issuing a very important warning, which is that if we give up democratic control over emerging technology, we're going to end up living in a technocratic society by forfeiting our collective power into the hands of these tech companies. And we're already seeing the consequences of that play out right now. Like, it seems like tech companies just get a pass to do whatever they want. And the government can't get itself together because government processes are just not fast, and also because nobody can agree that they can't even put regulations on it. So you have weird things going on. Like, I literally found out about a company that is being used in my neighborhood where it collects biometric data about when you visit their location and when you leave. So, like, it takes pictures of you. And there is just no privacy law against that. So yeah, that's just happening.
Technology was made by human beings, and if it's not doing for us what we want, then we have a right and a responsibility to change it. It's not given, it's not like the sun or the moon or the stars. It was designed by people, and we could design it differently.
And I think this is where people have got to have confidence that even though they may not be a PhD in nuclear physics, they have the authority, the right to say to the man who's got a device, all right, it's interesting and thank you very much, but whether we apply it or not is a political choice between your idea and other options.
We've got to understand that we do have a right to control the technology, but when you begin to try to exercise that control, invariably it is rooted in the large multinational corporations. Where that is the case, if effective resistance is built up in one country, they can move it to another. And in any case, they frequently move it to where labor costs are lowest or where the workforce is most docile. So I think there's a massive job to be done in terms of international trade union solidarity. It's possible to design equipment which is what I would call human-centered. That is to say that we regard human skill, ability, creativity and sheer enthusiasm as assets rather than liability. And we design the equipment around that rather than seeking to use the equipment to diminish and control it. So the real options, but it seems to me the options are not so much technological questions as political and ideological ones. What kind of society do we want? How do we want people to relate to production and each other? And when we get that clear, then we can design equipment which will allow them to do that.
I think this sense of that technology should give people that this is the moment when choices are to be made, rather than this is the moment when you must buckle down and accept the inevitable. This is the key question, and if you can get that straight, then the introduction or the discovery of microelectronics or any other new technology gives people a sense of freedom.
So the documentary leaves off with a reminder of our power, especially our collective power, that we do have a right to demand a future that serves humanity rather than makes humanity subservient to a design that only benefits the few. So if you made it this far into the video, thanks for sticking with me. And personally, watching this documentary really helped me put things into perspective against all the doom and gloom surrounding AI. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are and what your experiences have been with AI.